Hey, what's going on? Today is February 7th. You are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And because it's Wednesday, that means that it is time to talk about all the AI in the news. Today, we have Junmi, Robert, Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. And here's what we do. Every Wednesday, if you haven't listened to this show before, we scour the news. We look at all our different resources and we decide what we think is interesting that happened in the last 7 days. Now, the cool thing about this show, why I always love it, is that we really, with rare exception, don't share ahead of time what we think is interesting. So in this case, you got 5 different people, 5 different, likes and dislikes and things that pop and make it more interesting for us personally, and then we get to share that with you guys. Some of it's going to be overlaid because there's some big stories out there. Now, Carl is not with us today, which is a damn shame, because the first thing I was going to kick off with was that Google Gemini, which is the rebrand of Google Bard, which should be coming out tomorrow. I can share a screen on that, but there's some chatter out there that says they're lining up for February 8th. So maybe by the time you're listening to this, go to gemini.google.com and see if it's live. It's not right now. But the big thing there was, and the reason I mentioned Carl is because they're like now available in Canada. And if you've been listening to this show for any period of time, you'll have heard Carl, our Canadian friend who's on this show and co-host, always talking about how Google kind of has always, and it's not probably Google, it's probably Canada, let's be honest, it's the government that has blocked it or whatever, not allowing them to have like some of the Google tools, and he has to use VPNs and stuff. So just wanted to kick it off really quick with sort of a cool news story. Google is ramping up here. This is definitely going to be the year, I think, where people stop slamming Google for being behind. And this is the year where people are going to be like, well, no, it's now integrated in my Google Maps and my Google Gmail and all these other things. They should be relaunching. If you don't know what we're talking about, Gemini is what they've rebranded Bard to be. Bard is free. The basic version of Gemini will be free. Again, instead of going to bard.google.com, you go to gemini.google.com. One cool thing about that is you don't have to sign in. You can just use it at the website. So pretty cool to be able to use the LLM that way without feeling like you have to give away any of your information. And then as with Microsoft, OpenAI, and so many others, Perplexity, there'll be a paid version that's supposed to give us access to Gemini Ultra. So if you remember, guys, there was that, big push in like December, and there was a video, and then it turned out that the video was way too good to be true, and it was highly edited and all these other things. So yet to be seen what we'll actually see tomorrow, if it's just a rebranding and that kind of thing. So that was one of the big news ones I wanted to kick off with, but it's a shame that Carl's not here to give us his Canadian feedback on that.
You want to talk about impacts of that, or to be kind of like want to keep it high level? Because there's some interesting implications with regard to Google. Obviously, they got recently ranked number 2 only to GPT-4. And for those who have watched or listened to the Marketing AI Institute with Paul Raitzer, they kind of delve into this a little bit, which I found interesting about, the elephant in the room. They're developing this model that's going to be free to use, which is quite competitive against OpenAI. But more importantly, what's going to happen with their revenue model? We haven't got an answer to this, and they haven't. I'm sure they have an answer, but it's quite a conundrum. To see what they're going to do with it, which is why they had all the tech for years and years, but they just didn't implement it because obviously this is the reason. Any thoughts on that, anybody?
Just a couple points of clarification. Gemini Pro is the one that is free to use, and that is available at bard.google.com. Like you can already use it, and it's the one that scores second, just below GPT-4. And Ultra is the one that's coming out that will be paid, and that apparently I didn't see that it was. I'm getting an error at gemini.google.com, so clearly it's not available yet.
Not yet.
Cool.
But it's reputed to supersede OpenAI's GPT-4.
Yeah. We'll see. They also say be multimodal.
GPT-5 is just around the corner, so they might be just one step behind still.
Yeah, and it didn't, like, somebody was saying this, and I almost found it hard to believe, but somebody said GPT-4 has already been out for a year. That seems early. Was it already out last January or February.
Well, remember that it was in theory, yes, it was, but it was not released to the full public. A lot of people had early access to it, were using it, but I think it was like early last year. Yeah.
Wow. I would have, I mean, if you had asked me and just surveyed me, I would have said, I don't know, June. That's when 4 came out. I would have thought we were on 3.5 the whole time before that. So it's kind of crazy to think that it's held the benchmark spot, the top spot that everything else is based off of for a year. And so to your point, like, I don't know how close we are to GPT-5. I know everybody's got other news. I just have one, since we were just talking about browsing, because I think it's really important. ARC, A-R-C. I do not have access yet because they don't have like their Windows browsing, but I did start using their app, and I gotta say, it's pretty slick. So what this is, I'm gonna have to hold this up because I don't have a really fast way to. I
can show it on my Macintosh because I have access.
Okay, I'll show this really quick, and it's kind of cheesy, but I'll explain it to you. I know it helps.
Mac fanboys.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, Jimmy.
I know, Jimmy. Sorry, I was trying to make. Sorry, I'm trying to make me the. How do I make me the big screen, Jimmy?
You just hit the solo layout.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to show you this really quick. So I just did a quick search. I'm going to show it to you here. You can see it sort of towards the top there. That kind of shitty, isn't it? But okay, towards the top there, I put in one of our future topics, which is latest use cases for meta prompting. Now, if you just hit search, if I just hit search there and hit enter, it looks exactly like Google, like just like it's literally is Google, right? But if I hit the browse for me, what it does is it says searching 6 different sites, creating a website for you. Then it comes back with this. And I'll just kind of scroll here, like latest use cases for meta prompting, some other top search results. Then it gives me some research findings, some practical applications, some quick feedback. And then if we get all the way to the bottom here, it's got all its cited sources on there. Wow. I did this 3 or 4 times just this morning. It's cooler than, thank you. It's cooler than Perplexity. Straight up. It's cooler than Perplexity.
Because because it's a Perplexity wrapper, right? What it is doing is building you. Isn't that true? Everyone's looking at me.
Arc, not to my knowledge, but okay.
Arc paired with Perplexity. So join on Friday when we wrap up, and I tell you whether I'm totally full of it or whether this is totally right and I'm vindicated. Right. But I believe that Arc paired with Perplexity. So Perplexity is their search function,
which may be right. It is a nicer view,
right?
Like on the phone.
It builds the web page for you of your results from Perplexity. Like it's a Reese's cups relationship, right?
I said one of the things that I won't dig into because we have much more news, but like I said, just as a basically thing, I'm into football and stuff, but I said, make me sound smart about the Super Bowl, right? That would be something that if you were going into a social party or social thing and you're like, I know these people are going to start talking about wine. I don't know anything about wine. Like don't ask me I'm not even going to name one because I'll get it wrong. So like, I don't know anything about wine. So if I was like, help me not sound like an idiot about wine, and it hit browse for me and it builds me a quick web page and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a rosé. Okay. It's red. I don't know what that means. Tell me what a rosé is. When I scroll through or whatever, like that's like a cheat sheet going into social for people who have social anxiety, which is not my problem. Yeah. But for people who have going in there, like, I just want to sound a little bit more like I know what I'm talking about. That's a genius in your pocket right there. And it's really, really fast. So I think we should be talking about Arc pretty soon.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Perplexity says, and Perplexity is now integrated into Arc browser, providing a streamlined browsing experience by combining Arc's minimalist interface with Perplexity's intelligent search.
Yeah, well, it's a nice 1-2 punch. So I don't want to lean on that because here's what I think, guys. I think this should be the app itself, which is called Arc Search, by the way, ARC Search. That app should be do me a favor, our review in 2 weeks.
Show me how you do this.
All right.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
I can. Yeah.
I just did latest using AI as a Google search, and you said you can browse for me. Where's browse for me?
It's not a Google thing.
I know.
Well, no, it does look exactly like Google if you do it that way. But that when I do my search, Robert, it has a browse for me option on the app. Whether that's on the mobile, the desktop, I don't know because I don't have access to it.
Okay. Cool.
But it literally has a little button next to it that says browse for me on it.
You can show me later.
Yeah.
I'm curious how to do it. How to do that. Yeah.
No, legit. I think it should be I think that just the app, the ARC search should be our deep dive review in 2 Fridays, not this.
You
Friday.
heard it here, folks. Because I don't know that now that we've said this, it's going to be anything different. Come back on Friday.
Really good.
Come back a week from Friday.
It's kind of cool to hear that it's wrapped in with Perplexity, because I'm interested for us to deep dive into like why there's this other company that's leaning on Perplexity and they're gonna have their own whatever. So anyway, that's it for me. What else we got for news?
It's a partnership. They actually did this collaboratively.
Yeah. So you said something about Google Maps, and I don't want to like run by it. Google is rolling out a bunch of functions, right? One of them is Gemini Ultra, but also you are going to be able to natural language interact with Google Maps. So you can say, I want, give me like the Chinese food places that are around Studio Theater, and rank them, right, based on reviews, like those kinds of things. So the reason that this is important, not only that it's very cool, because I'm going to be like, all right, there's a thrift store on Georgia Avenue, and I have no idea what it's called. Please just give me the thrift store on Georgia Avenue, because that's, but also we hammer about data. What this is searching in its natural language interface is data on your business. So make sure that it says, we're 3 blocks from Studio Theater, or like great for theater goers before they, right? Like you want to be engaging, right? We've talked about this. It is not just that you are trying to now SEO for users to find you. You want to make sure that all of the natural language interfaces are going to be able to find you as well.
Right. Yeah. Love it. Yeah. I mean, I will say, just for me, before we move on to other topics, is Google Maps is probably like my 4th most used search engine. I mean, still Google, I know, but like truthfully, like if it's location based, I'm much more likely to go into Google Maps and search what I'm looking for. So as a user myself, I cannot wait for it to have more natural language semantic search in there, because holy moly, is that going to help? Because it's wrong a lot of times because of the keyword searches. So having it understand and being able to read the reviews really quick and the metadata, like you're talking about, Beth, would be super helpful, especially if it was like, show me a Thai restaurant around me for somebody who doesn't really like Thai, right? That's a weird search, but it might be relevant to me because I don't like Thai food, but maybe I do. Maybe I like a fusion restaurant or something. Who knows? So, all right, what else we got? Who wants to dive in? Jimmy, you had something with the scrolls or something.
Yeah. So if you remember from a news show a few months ago, we talked about this ongoing prize called the Vesuvian Prize. And essentially it's these scrolls that they found years ago in the aftermath of the Mount Vesuvius explosion. And so they've been using AI to help identify the characters to read these scrolls that are thousands of years old. And the latest news in that is a team of students just won one of the big prizes because they were able to use an AI model they built to identify, I believe it was like 1,000 different letters or 2,000 Greek characters written on one of the scrolls, which is only like 5% of the whole text. But this could be the tech that's needed to identify all of the scrolls, there's like a library of 800 scrolls recovered. So I thought it was an interesting story because it's using the tech of the future to identify our past. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And they only excavated part of the place where they found the scrolls.
Exactly. There's
like
stuff in there. Exactly. Anybody
that is curious that's watching this, I know that's small and it looks funny on the screen, but That's one of the scrolls. That's literally what they're reading. It is
Because
burnt to a crisp. If you can't see this, if you're listening to a podcast, it is literally like it looks like, well, I won't tell you what it really looks like, but it looks like a burnt log is what it looks like.
Yes.
And there's nothing redeeming about like there's not even a letter or anything that makes you even think that's a scroll. So like, it's super, super impressive that it worked at all.
The thing that I most love is the scroll and the characters they identified in the scroll that they've done so far was a scroll that was talking about how obsessed we are with music and food.
Yeah.
Like even 2,000 years ago, it's like you want an abundance of music in your life and you want to eat as much food as possible. And I'm like, all right, things that I don't think will ever change. So everybody,
2,000 years old, they're pontificating.
We have uncovered ancient wisdom.
Yeah. It was also part of the too about food talking about. Like Jimmy was saying, like the philosopher, whoever it was you wrote on school, was saying something to the effect of like, does food that is more scarce inherently taste better? And I thought, well, that's something we would still talk about today. Does scarcity necessarily correlate with desire, a desire or taste or whatever? Like, the shiitake mushrooms or whatever it is that people find, those kind of things.
Well, see that when I read that, it was like what popped in my head was, hunger is the best spice. That's what essentially translates to me. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. When you're more hungry, it tastes better.
Yeah.
And anyone who's gone through their 20s understands, rifling through the couch for change to buy that hamburger.
Taco Bell.
I mean, did you want to talk about the AI?
Yeah, let's shift back to AI here. I'm going to rattle through a few of them that are pretty important. Relatively speaking, relative to hamburgers, that is.
Well, I didn't think Jimmy was done though.
I'm sorry,
Jimmy.
Do you have any?
I've got a couple of smaller stories. One about Bumble introducing their AI tool that blocks spam accounts, and apparently it's so effective it blocked 95% of the spam accounts that were on Bumble, and then reduced the amount of fake accounts by 45%. And I was like, that's awesome. It was great that identified that. What I didn't realize there was that much spam and fake accounts on that. And then, of course, something I'm more personally interested in is Tencent, Chinese company known for the WeChat app and video games and things like that. They had a major upgrade to their generative AI video model. And it pretty much, I wanted to highlight that there is just a lot of big players now. Alibaba announced their stuff a few months ago, and we talked about Pika Labs in the past. So there's a lot of players in the generative AI video side of things. Yes. And so with this latest update to Dynamic Crafter, we're seeing that further progression. Their big change in their paper they mentioned was their diffusion model applies to a more generalized set, whereas the other models seem to focus on like domain specific or something they call, stochastic dynamics, which essentially means like clouds and fluid movement and stuff like that. That's why we've been seeing a lot of water motion and cloud motion really come out, like in Runway and ML and stuff like that. So they're saying their model is just generalized. We can apply to any kind of any kind of motion as opposed to being more specific. And of course, all the examples they showed highlighted their model better than anybody else's. But, once we get to actually try it out, then we'll see. But yeah, they're heating up on that side. Other than that, Roblox, if you're familiar with that, really popular amongst the kids for making games and playing games with other people. They introduced an AI chat translator so that the chat box, the chat window can translate between 16 different languages nearly instantaneously. So
thank you. As a father of a 13-year-old who is constantly trying to protect my daughter from stuff, that's the last thing I want is some other person speaking in a language now that trying to.
I'm 100% with you on that, Robert.
Oh
I'm like, yes, but no. There'll be no Roblox chatting in my house. I don't care what language you can do it in. In fact, I'm worried that there's too many now.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. No thanks.
And that's pretty much all of the smaller stories. And then there's a bigger theme that I think we can wrap around to after everybody's mentioned some stories they like.
All right.
All right. Jumping in here. So sticking with video and image generation, one of the big players in the world here is NVIDIA. And in addition to being the leader with 80% of the market for GPUs worldwide, they also have a very robust investment and development stream in AI tools. So they just released this week a thing called Consistory, which is a text-to-image generator that creates consistent subjects for portrayals in repeated use. So this is a trick that is important to people who are going to be using text-to-image generation prompts, because you want to be able to reproduce that, but do it in a different context. So these are reusable anchor prompts, and they can then be combined with new prompts. And then what that does is it makes reusable images in effect that you can apply in your development. So that's a major contribution to that whole text to image thing. On images, OpenAI announced their intent to adhere to the C2PA metadata standard. C2PA is the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authentication. So that is like a watermark in effect that goes into a DALL-E image starting immediately. And I also read about that you can remove the watermark. So I'm not sure how permanent that is. I mean, watermarks aren't particularly useful if the user can actually just remove them. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that Hugging Face, which is a major open source platform with lots of different tools, it has released a competitor to custom GPTs. And we've got an image here. Yeah, Hugging Chop. So one of the restrictions of using custom GPTs, apart from just some of the complexities of actually articulating a custom GPT and making it work reliably, it's still early in that game. You have to be a programmer to really be able to do that. Like the guy, Nick Dobos behind Grimoire, he doesn't have any of the problems that I have with it. But the other problem is that it's only accessible by people who have the ChatGPT Plus subscription. This new platform for similar things, small, assistants that you can build and can do different bespoke functions that you create on the Hugging Face platform is open to the public.
Yeah, I think I played around with it a little bit, and look, it can't connect to browsing right now, and it cannot you can't upload files to it. So for me, it's limited. I went and poked around the ones that were already built in there, and it's a lot of the stuff we've already seen. Just to talk to your cat and just a whole bunch of stuff that I don't understand. Like whatever, fine. It's on there. I did do one because I'm going to be traveling to Paris later this year. I did do one about like interesting places around Paris, and it did bring in. I was like, what about in the 4th arrondissement, which is where I'll be staying? And it's like, oh yeah, here's some areas, whatever. What I found interesting is at the end of the 3rd response it gave me, it asked for support. It didn't have a link or anything, but it asked for support for a small donation of 100 euros to support the future creation of that particular chat. I was like, well, there you go. There's your open source. People are like, for a small donation of 100 euros, I'll be happy to continue doing this for you. So, but yeah, I wasn't. That's what we're showing on the screen is the assistants that are kind of like the public facing one that have been built out. I scrolled through a couple of pages. I don't know about anybody else. I didn't find anything right this minute.
But I don't think it's about the capabilities. It's about the fact that this is an open source version, and I love that.
I agree.
Which is Hugging Chat is also open source. You can actually pick the model you want. You can use Mixtral. You can use Llama.
Yep.
I love that aspect, and but it's funny. It's a exact duplicate. Like they didn't try to change the UI at all. It's like exactly the same UI as OpenAI, which is fine. But I think that's the point, right? They're trying to duplicate it in open source.
I'm excited about it. I think
news whenever you're
I think it'll be cool. Go ahead. Sorry, Robert.
Yeah. So just quickly, I'll just go ahead and I like sharing screens, makes it easier for me to remember what I'm talking about. So the first thing is Amazon.
You're not sharing right now.
I know.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm going fast. I'm multitasking. All right. So here you go. So we have Amazon's Rufus. They announced it. I'm not sure if we talked about it before, but kind of interesting. They have been the AI leader for years. I mean, they've been doing AI and suggestions in your cart based on buying, but this is overtly, hey, we have all the information on every product in our inventory. This allows you to ask questions about it, and it also parlays that into the reviews as well. So it's brilliant. Isn't accessible to me yet, but I think this is gonna be very helpful. And they should have done this earlier, but I'm glad they're doing it now. That's pretty cool. I want to go into a couple of the things on the ethics side of AI. So this is there's an underground site where you can they use neural networks to create fake IDs. Now you think, well, that's kind of stupid. You can't actually get into a club with a fake ID. But as you know, a lot of the time you have to take a picture of your ID for certain types of verification. And if you can generate one, that's pretty scary. Right. So you're basically generating one like, oh yeah, I took a picture of my ID on the carpet. No, you didn't. That's completely fake. And so that's interesting. And along the same lines as ethics, a finance worker was duped out of 25 million. Can you imagine? I mean, I'm just saying, I would have loved to have been that scammer who got $25 million, but obviously that's unethical. But the idea is they actually, this is not your typical, Indian call center that's calling your grandma asking for $1,000 from a Amazon gift card. This is a little bit more intense. And basically they had a Zoom call invite and she thought it was spam, but she actually joined the call and realized it was real because she thought, because it had literal her teammates, videos of her teammates on the call. They're all AI generated, and she thought it was real. And maybe they were in other countries, and so maybe she wasn't able to tell that it wasn't them or something. I don't know, but I can't imagine the video being that good. But she was duped out of it through a chain of events, which I thought was horrible, but also scary. Just thinking about next Zoom call you're on, you got to make sure your boss is actually your boss.
But here, let me just say that if a company out there doesn't have multi-authentication steps for a $25 million transfer, that's their fault, not the woman who got duped by the video.
Yeah, truly.
There's no one person should ever be able to authorize a transfer of that size.
Well, it was
multiple, and they were definitely
multiple transfers that added up to 25 million. But still, I agree with you, Andy. Why did somebody have the keys to all of that anyway? Off of a Zoom call without any further thing, and they didn't find out till like a week or two later that it happened. So,
and what would be good for that? You could have an AI watching your money transfers, and if there's a not consistent pattern, somebody gets flagged like, hey, we might want to pay attention to this. Perhaps that happens at 500,000 or 1 million before it gets to 25.
Yeah. Sync Labs, this was another one that came out recently, that an AI API for real-time lip syncing. Not the best. If you look at some of their examples, like Marcus Aurelius here, you can't hear it, but he's speaking in some different language, but in his voice, which we've seen this before, but this is just an API that allows that. So maybe it's getting better. This is a really cool one. This was a new paper that came out where you can put a item in an existing video. So like you can throw a trash can in this video where they have a little a cutout where they show where the trash can was placed, and the trash can is placed where there was a light pole, and it was able to mimic the background, the color, and the shading, and the light temperature and stuff. And same for this trash can bag, which I think is scary, right? If you're looking about people who are taking videos and editing them to add stuff, that's kind of scary. But using AI,
Well, I mean, in the film side of things, that would cut down on a ton of work for compositors if you could just generate your items and put them in that easily.
That's all
I'll have to look into more myself. Yeah.
This is a good, and Beth, we need to get to your stories here, but I would say just a quick follow up on that is like, that goes in line with what Meta is talking about. They just pushed this week too as a news story talking about how they're going to have notices or little blurbs on any images or video that are AI produced using whatever proprietary knowledge, tools they have internally at Meta to determine if something was AI generated or not. And if you're on Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram and you're not specifically saying this was AI generated, that there could be whatchamacallits, the word went out of my head, but anyway, there could be issues with doing that. So they are going to label them, but you also need to be on there. And how successful that is going into the new US election this year, I don't know, but I get it. I see that they're ramping up for it. And when you see stuff like that, Robert, where you can just so easily and convincingly move objects around, this can work on both sides of the party, from watching, Biden trip over stuff that wasn't there and just showing that he's not capable, and doing the same thing on the Trump side and any other place in the spectrum. So I just think it's really, really, it's a scary time, because this stuff is getting so convincingly real that a lot of people just wouldn't think, oh, that trash can wasn't there. Like, who's thinking that trash can doesn't exist in that office? There's no reason. It's so weird. So anyway, that's that part of it. But go ahead, Beth, because I know you haven't had a chance to share here.
I've been commenting on everybody else's. One of the things that to move that topic forward, one of the things that I want to point out is that if you are a business, and we have talked about how much goes into having a business record a video with like their CEO or someone who's really important, like it's going to have a lot of believability because of who is talking in the video, and they're referencing, let's say, your product 1.0, right? You can actually switch that image of the product. You could put a little thing over it that says now 1.5. And what the CEO is saying about the product doesn't need to be re-recorded, right? So like it opens up that kind of stuff. Or let's say that you're paid to promote one product for a month, and it's like, hey, I already made the video. We can keep this going, but now there's a residual that I want to get paid each month for that, to keep that product in the video. If not, I'm going to shop this video to another product, right? And it just, I think on a business level, it creates some interesting opportunities. So one of the stories that came out was Stanford University and Stability AI introduced Chex Agent, a new AI model for automated chest X-ray interpretation, right? So more science that's directly impacting how much information you can get and how from your medical interventions. And that's exciting. And we reviewed Runway on last Friday. The Gen 48, so the 48-hour film festival with Runway's generative AI, has all submissions was this past weekend, and voting starts this Friday. So if you are interested in seeing what other people can do other than what we were talking about in terms of our stuff, there are real experts, and it is just amazing watching some people who have who've put their submissions on Twitter before it's available to vote for them. But there is some amazing stuff.
Did you submit something?
Not to the 48. I did bring up the possible question to our audience whether the DAS crew should submit something to the second annual AI Film Festival. Right. Got some positive feedback. But Brian, now that you're here, what do you think? Should we only have to do a minute worth? It's 1 minute to 10 minutes. We just have to do a minute worth of AI filmmaking through Runway.
I mean, Yeah, maybe there's a way to use like the movie mashup, we can do you can do a mashup. What was the one I used? It was Shrek and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I did another one that was I can't remember what it was, but it was the 40-year-old version and it was hilarious. So I don't know, maybe that could be our storyboard for the script, and then we can come up with a quick 1-minute movie mashup or something like that. That'd be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe so. That sounds cool.
Council of Creatives right here.
Here we go. And those are pretty much it for me. There's lots of other news stories, but I wanted to.
I have one more, and then I know, Jimmy, you had one that you wanted to wrap up with, but I'll give you mine really quick because it's AI doesn't cease to surprise me, and this is one of these cases. So I started to read a story, and it was about deep fakes in AI, and it mentioned 4chan, and I was like, okay, here we go again, right? I thought it was gonna be more about like what's going on, what happened with Taylor Swift. That's our topic for next Monday's show, so we won't get into that. But with the AI deep fakes and stuff like that, but surprisingly, it was actually using AI to put clothes back on women in using AI for it. So there was things where they had used not Dua Lipa, it was Miley Cyrus and somebody else, and it was promoted by a heavily, I guess, a predominant conservative pastor or just speaker, something like that. And now you have people saying like, whoa, that's violating women's rights and, body image and stuff like that. And I don't think these were nude images. I think this was just literally adding more clothes to maybe somebody who felt that, women's body was scantily clad or whatever the case is. And I thought, well, there you go. You don't, there's so many stories about deep fakes of making clothed women or men, I suppose, look nude or other problems. And here we are, AI being used the other way.
Up next, Burqa GPT.
Okay, let's just dial this. Let's dial this back just a tiny bit, because the problem is not like the inherent problem isn't so much the removal or the putting on of clothes. It's the idea that you get to choose what a woman looks like because you have the power to do that.
Yes.
So like that is bad, whether it's a burqa or a nudie. Right. Like it's not for you to choose that.
Right. No, I listen, it was, I don't know, shocking and then not so shocking, but of course people can use AI for going the opposite direction of that based on their beliefs and what they think is right and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, yeah, nope, there you go. Who knows? Who knew that 4chan there was people that were adding clothes? It kind of shocked me. So, all right, Jimmy, you said you had one sort of central theme to wrap us up on, so take us home.
So I think we covered it for the most part, and that was OpenAI and Meta's movement into identifying deepfakes. There's a story of how there was the AI-generated robocallers for Biden in New Hampshire and things like that. They were able to find out the two companies that went through that process, and so are now moving along the lines of subpoenaing and moving down the legal methods for that. So that was the general theme. Now I know we only have a couple minutes left of our over 30 minutes that we normally do. But I wanted to end on a slightly lighter note about Apple, because we've talked about Apple's foray into AI and the possibilities and things like that. But in the last week, they also dropped another tidbit. And I wanted to comment on Apple's hype train. Like we have seen over the last few months, every couple of weeks, every month or so, they just drop a little more tidbit. Tim Cook just dropped another little tidbit last week about, AI is going to be huge for Apple, but this year. And so everyone's looking at the June-based or normally June-based WWDC for all of those big announcements. So all I'm saying is, Apple, you have gotten your hype train revving pretty fast and pretty far. You gotta deliver. Like if this is some half-baked thing that you come out with, don't pull a Google. That's all I'm saying is don't pull a Google. Don't do fake video of some future tech that isn't out for months after time. But that's just all I wanted to bring up. Was I wanted to get your thoughts, if you had any, on Apple and what they're facing come June, because if they don't deliver, that's going to be the first time that they're super, super disappointed, right?
Well, their hype train is so amazing. Like, he really did say stuff, but Apple has been doing AI for serious AI. It's bad AI at this point, but it was great AI when it came out, right? The hype is that they said AI. Right? Like they have not used the word. They've talked about all these other things, which is like, oh no, now they said AI. It's really AI, and it's gotta happen. It's like such an effective. Yeah, you've trained us. We're now very
big in Apple news this week was the release, in effect, of the Vision Pro, and the emergence on videos of people demonstrating the use of Vision Pro. And Vision Pro is hardware, but it's going to be nicely integrated with all kinds of AI tools. So I think it's
like that's part of ChatGPT has an app on the Vision Pro. So, if you're a hardcore ChatGPT user, don't worry. You can pick up a Vision Pro at your local Apple store for $3,500. Go for it. No problem.
Well, listen, we're going to wrap this up because we are dangerously past 40 minutes at this point. And look, there'll be every Wednesday from here to God knows when that we'll be able to talk about more and more Apple stuff, because we know the hype train won't stop. Tomorrow we have coming up talking about semantic searching and vector-based. And Friday, we're doing our 2-week wrap-up show. It'll be the first time we've done that. So come back the rest of this week. We got all sorts of new topics next week. And until then, we're going to say goodbye. Bye.
Bye.